Welcome to part 2 of MTBS's 2011 3D buying guide. For this segment, we're joined by Tuate. Thanks for joining us, Tuate. In our last segment, we talked about the basics, what 3D is, how 3D works, and some general rules to follow when shopping. So this time around, we're going to focus on 3D HDTVs, the living room experience. Now, rule number 1, size is everything. The bigger the screen, the more effective the 3D will be. So I would actually recommend when you're buying a 3D television, aim for something 50 inches or bigger. If you have a room that can store it, if you can afford it, go for it. Now, as far as connectivity, make sure, rule number 2, have the right connections. Modern 3D HDTVs are based on HDMI 1.4 or 1.4a. Make sure that your new television supports this. Do not buy a used 3D HDTV if it does not have these connections. The problem is that anything earlier, if you're a gamer, will not work with Sony PlayStation 3 in 3D mode, as well as Xbox 360 in 3D mode. HDMI 1.4 is an absolute must. Now, as far as the glasses are concerned, rule number 3, research the glasses. Try them on for comfort first. If you go to the store and you find that it has a great 3D experience, the display is great, but you don't like the glasses, don't worry about it. Get the display, and there are third-party glasses manufacturers that will likely support that display as well. So they're generic glasses, and they tend to work with multiple manufacturers. Just make sure that your manufacturer and display is properly listed. Maybe get the opportunity to test it out for yourself to be sure. And that's another way of getting the comfort and the display that you want. Now, as far as big ticket items at the electronics stores, I know when I go to the local electronics store, they tend to push the extras on me. In the 3D world, the extras are expensive cables. So, branded HDMI 1.4 cables, or sometimes they'll say that you need special HDMI 1.4 versus the older HDMI 1.3. In my experience, it's all the same stuff. You don't need to get anything fancy to get your 3D television to work, so save your money. Now, as far as the required features, I mentioned earlier, I keep saying HDMI 1.4, 1.4, 1.4. Another thing you should look at are extra 3D formats. And the 3D formats that you should be looking for are above, below, and side-by-side formats. It's the way the screen is divided, and the TV can translate this into a 3D image. Usually it's found in the television's menus. If you can't find it, or it's not listed in the manual for the television, ask a sales associate to find it for you. This is important to maximize your 3D compatibility. Now, as far as content bundling is concerned, important rule, don't make your purchase choices based on what content is bundled with the TV or what Blu-rays comes with the television. A year ago, it used to be that you'd buy a TV, it included a popular 3D movie, and you couldn't buy that 3D movie separately. It was something exclusive to that television. That's rarely the case anymore, so shop for the display that you want, and you usually get those 3D movies separately on the shelf. There's a lot more on store shelves than there used to be. Now, when you're actually shopping or buying your 3D television, it's important to do some tests. I mean, don't just put the glasses on and look at the image and enjoy the 3D. There are some basic tests that you can do to make sure that you're going to get the television that you want and will ultimately enjoy. So one of the most important tests is crosstalk, or a ghosting test. And the idea is, I mentioned in the first segment, in the case of shutter glasses and polarized glasses, the idea is that the left and right image are filtered to each eye individually. Now, one of the challenges when it comes to 3D televisions is to cut down on crosstalk, or ghosting. And what this really is the left image bleeding into the right eye and the right eye image bleeding into the left. It could be one, could be both. Now, there will always be a little bit of ghosting if you look for it. You really have to look for it, but it's more pronounced with some displays more than others. So when you go to the store and you're trying different 3D televisions, open one eye at a time. See if there's any crosstalk and how much there is. Another thing to look for is When you're watching a 3D image, look at it, with the glasses off, with the glasses on, and see how much light is lost. Because depending on the display that you're using, you may find that some displays are brighter than others and are going to be more comfortable than others. Now there will always be some light loss when it comes to watching 3D versus 2D programming, but it varies from one display to the next. So look for something that you're going to be happy with. Now something to be aware of is when you go to the store and you're watching the TV in 3D, each television has their own trailer. They have, each manufacturer has content that they want to show to make their TV look good. Well, this is something you have to play a part in where, sure, you may enjoy what the manufacturer has to show, but you should ask to see other types of content. Ask them to connect a console or bring your own console to the store. See how that looks in 3D. Look for high contrast situations. Really look for failures and flaws from one TV to the next. And when you go through this test and you find the results that you're looking for, you'll be that much happier with your television. You don't want to discover these things further down the road. You want to discover them before you bring the TV home. Now, also when it comes to the content, make sure that you test the same content on each television. If you're going to just choose different content for different TVs, you really won't get an accurate or a fair measure of one display to the next. Now, on the topic of console gaming, as far as gaming in 3D, Sony PlayStation 3 is pretty much a standardized console now. It supports HDMI 1.4 on all 3D televisions. So regardless of, even though Sony may promote their own Sony brand for displays, you can be comfortable that when you buy an HDMI 1.4 compliant 3D television, it should very well work with the Sony PlayStation. Now, if you're going to buy the Sony for the first time, I recommended this last year, I'm doing it again this year. Try to get a bundle that includes the Move interface. The Move is the wand device that comes with the camera. It's really neat, and they actually have games now where they mix the Move along with the 3D. So you get a mix of 3D and interaction, and it's really a lot of fun. So it comes highly recommended. Another advantage of Sony PlayStation is that it includes a Blu-ray player. But not only that, it's now a 3D Blu-ray player. And in the last year, they made further improvements. It used to be that when you played 3D Blu-ray on the Sony PlayStation, the audio wasn't quite as good as it would be in 2D mode. Well, they've improved that since, and it's now directly competitive with a full 3D Blu-ray player. So you could save some money by owning a Sony PlayStation. Now, as far as Xbox 360 is concerned, that also works with HDMI 1.4 compliant 3D HDTVs. Now, something to be aware of if you own an Xbox, make sure it's an Xbox 360 or better, because the earlier Xboxes did not have an HDMI connector and therefore would not be compatible with a 3D television. Now, the good news is we are starting to see more third-party game developer support for 3D gaming. But the real victory for Xbox is it used to be that their 3D quality wasn't as good as Sony PlayStation. Well, the good news is with a recent firmware update, they're now able to support the same resolution that Sony does, which is 720p or 1280 by 720p pixels in 3D mode, and not have any extra anomalies because of scaling and so on. So this is getting a little technical, but the point is that Xbox can now perform just as well as Sony in 3D mode. However, to make this work, we need to see some proper third-party game developer support, and Sony's ahead of the game on this front, but Xbox is clearly catching up. Now, when it comes to shopping for Xbox 360 3D games, I would recommend asking around before making a purchase. Not all 3D-ready games that are stamped as being 3D ready are born equal. One of the big technologies being promoted in the console market is 2D plus depth, which is pseudo 3D. Normally a true stereoscopic 3D rendering is like a left and right camera view. It requires more processing time, but it's a very rewarding 3D experience. 2D plus depth is based on a single camera view and uses the game's built-in 3D information to extrapolate what 3D should look like, but in practice it doesn't quite work because it's work as well as a true stereoscopic 3D rendering. You lose a lot of the excitement that real 3D offers. So I would recommend asking around which games perform well for Xbox 360 before making final purchase decisions. Now, this isn't something I've personally tested. I know on the MTBS forums, the recent or the new release of Halo with 3D support has had positive response so far. So read through the forums, ask around, and you'll be happy with your game buying decisions for Xbox 360 until the newer titles come out. Now, something new, this is just released, is the Sony PlayStation 24-inch 3D HDTV / display. Now, this was just released. Unfortunately, it's not available in Europe yet. It's expected to be released probably by 2012. There were some delays in making this happen in Europe, but nonetheless, it's got 1080p resolution, so if you play a 3D Blu-ray, you'll be able to enjoy it in full resolution. And if you're gaming in 3D, it supports 720p resolution, the PlayStation 3 or HDMI 1.4 standard as far as gaming is concerned. It has 2 HDMI connectors on the side. So this is good because you could connect it to a PlayStation, and if you want, you could connect it to a digital cable box or maybe a second Blu-ray player. It also features component-in connectors. This is also very popular for cable digital boxes. Now, another benefit, it comes with 1 pair of Sony shutter glasses, so you don't have to go out and get extra glasses with the display. And just to make sure you're enjoying the purchase, it also includes MotorStorm Apocalypse with the display. Now, although it's branded as being a Sony product and branded for Sony PlayStation, it is based on the HDMI 1.4 standard, which means, in theory, it should work equally well on the Xbox 360. Now, as far as the quality of the product or the workmanship, it's quite good. But something to be aware of is the 3D mode is, in my opinion, darker than what I've grown accustomed to with other solutions in the market. However, the ghosting or the crosstalk between the left and right eyes is very low. Now, but I think there's a good reason for Sony to make this minor trade-off, and that's because they have a simul-view feature. And what this means is that you could have 2 players sharing 1 screen, each seeing a completely independent view. So, for example, these are the LCD shutter glasses, and if you recall the last segment, I explained the 3D works where the left eye and right eye are seen independently, left, right, left, right, left, right, and it's a shuttering effect where first one eye sees an image, then the other eye sees an image, and then back again over and over and over again, very, very fast. Well, in the case of simul-view, what they do is, instead of having individual lenses, they're treated as glasses. So, the display will show 1 image, and then the glasses will see it. Then the display will show another image, this pair of glasses gets blocked, and then this player is able to see the image. And then it goes back again. So you see player 1, player 2, player 1, player 2, over and over and over again, and you could have both players seeing a full resolution screen and game on at the same time. So it's actually a very exciting idea. And MotorStorm is one of the first titles to support it, and other games are gradually being patched to support this as well. Now, it is unique to Sony, so if you have these glasses, the simul-view feature will not work with other 3D televisions or 3D displays. It is unique at this time to the Sony 24-inch display, and we may see other updates as well. And by the way, it hasn't been tested yet, but I don't expect that this would work with Xbox 360 as well. This is something limited to Sony. Now, just a little bit of a heads up on this. As I mentioned, it comes with 1 pair of glasses. If you want to benefit from the simul-view technology, you will need to buy, of course, an extra pair of Sony glasses. Now, how does this display compete? I mentioned already that it's a bit darker than other 3D solutions in the market. How does it compete? Well, in my opinion, I think that the 24-inch display is a great excuse for getting the kids out of the living room. And that way you can have your own 3D big-size TV to yourself. I mean, it's got the inputs, you can easily connect a digital box. The component-in adds the compatibility that you need. The only thing that is missing from this display is a remote control. I thought that was a little odd, but it doesn't really matter because if you connect it to a digital box, usually the digital box will have the volume and the channel changing functionality that you need anyway, so it's really not a big deal. Now the MSRP for this is about $500 US, and when it comes to buying extra glasses, you're looking at about $50 to $70 a piece, which really isn't a lot of money, because just a year ago it would have been easily $200, $250 a piece to buy extra glasses, so glasses have really dropped to reasonable rates. Now as far as games to buy, I mentioned it already comes with MotorStorm. My recommendation, Sony's been pushing a title recently called Uncharted 3 Drake's Deception. I've been playing it, it's actually quite good, I think you'd enjoy it. I would recommend purchasing that this holiday season. Now, one thing I discovered which I thought was really interesting is, you know, my experience from what I've seen of Sony is they're kind of the kings of being proprietary technology, but you know, these glasses are actually generic in that they will work with other 3D HDTVs on the market. So they'll work with Samsung, Panasonic, Sony of course, and others as well. So they're, you know, check them out, because if you already have a 3D TV and you're looking for additional glasses, if you like the way they fit, chances are high that this will work with that solution as well. So just check for compatibility, it may be worth your while. Now, just a reminder though, the SimulView, again, limited to Sony displays. So even though these glasses may work on other displays, that SimulView functionality is limited to Sony. Also, I should point out, SimulView is 2D gaming. It's not 3D. So it's using a 3D technology to work, but it is 2D gaming. Now, the other thing that's popular now is to have a PC in the living room. So, you know, consoles are great, but, you know, modern PCs with graphics cards by AMD and NVIDIA really offer fantastic gaming experiences. So gamers are finding that, you know, why not bring out the computer to the living room and really enjoy gaming on the big screen? Well, the most popular way of making stereoscopic 3D games possible in the living room is through something called stereoscopic 3D drivers. And what these drivers do is they take off-the-shelf games, extrapolate a left and right view from volumetric 3D information already included in the game, and put out the left-right image to the display, and you get this full 3D experience. It's as simple as that. Basically, it's a quick way of getting off-the-shelf games on the PC to work in 3D. Now, right now, the best options for doing this, the best software options for doing this, are Dynamic Digital Depth. They have a product called Tri-Def Ignition, and NVIDIA, which makes NVIDIA GeForce 3D Vision drivers. In the case of the living room experience, it's called 3D TV Play. There are other players in the market, but these would be my recommendations at this time. Now, in all cases, make sure you have a good graphics card, because it does take more processing power to render stereoscopic 3D gaming well. Now, NVIDIA has the most brand recognition, and they've also got strong game developer relationships. The 3D TV Play drivers go for about $40 US, so it's affordable. Now, but make sure, and I keep saying this over and over again, the TV has HDMI 1.4 connectivity. Without it, the software won't run. Now, also, it is an NVIDIA product, therefore you need an NVIDIA graphics card. If you have an AMD graphics card in your computer, this particular software package won't run. Now, in the case of DDD or Tri-Def Ignition, if you want to go through the HDMI connector, their support only works through AMD graphics cards. So in this case, you need a 5000 or 6000 series or better graphics card from AMD to use the technology. They have it branded as HD3D or the AMD 3D platform. Now, while DDD's game developer relationships aren't quite as strong, their quality control is equally competitive to NVIDIA. So they're very much equal to NVIDIA, and you really shouldn't hesitate for buying the DDD driver solution or the Tri-Def solution. One of the big advantages of Dynamic Digital Depth Tri-Def is that if you don't have an HDMI connector, or you have an older 3D television that doesn't necessarily support HDMI 1.4, it also supports the side-by-side and above-below formats, as well as interlaced or polarized displays. So you do have some additional compatibility options, and in these cases, it will work with both NVIDIA as well as AMD graphics cards. So you have some additional freedoms there. And their drivers go for about $50 US. So again, very affordable, and they do regular driver updates, as does NVIDIA. Now, as far as which games will run, I'm not big on marketing between the NVIDIA and DDD. I mean, they do their own quality assurance testing, of course. We actually have an independent service called Game Grade 3D, which is community-driven, where fellow gamers share their results and they grade the games. I would recommend using that as an independent resource to find out which games will work with the different driver solutions and what are the best settings to get the results that you need to get things running. So that's of course free to use. So thanks for watching. We'll be back with more shortly.